Awesome. All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. Wow, it's a great turnout. In Z meeting. Good, let's call to order the Town of Oakland Planning and Zoning meeting for February 2024 at 6:31. So if I could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty. Okay. We are awaiting our town planner who's kind of stuck in traffic, so we're gonna kind of run this out a little bit. He should be here like 7, so. All right, Elise, what we got?
Okay, we got roll calls. So Blaine Dooley.
Here.
Michael Elliott,
Present?
Michael Knappich,
Present.
Steve Ross. Here. Matt Sutton.
Here.
Shane Taylor.
Here.
Zach Brown is absent, but he let me know that. And we have him.
All right, great, guys. So on our agenda here in front of us is number 3 item, which is the public forum. And that's when anybody in the audience has any questions or anything they want to talk about with related to planning and zoning. Anyone, any takers? No, come on, we got to drag this out. All right. All right. All right, guys, so we'll bring back the table. So approval of the minutes. This is from our January 16th meeting. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at those? And is there any questions on those meeting minutes? No? All right, then we'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the previous minutes.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, guys. It's too easy. So our next is Mr. Stimmel, 80 Milholland Street in the pool easement. This they brought back to us from the last meeting, and
We do have a PowerPoint. Do you want me to run through that?
yeah, let's do it. So this is a variance for a pool and screen enclosure for 80 Milholland. And that is what, Z 24011. And I think you guys recall this. We talked last meeting, and the homeowner who is here has made some changes to it, and we requested that he go back through the variance process or refill the application. Just update the application, most current information. So Elise is going to scroll through. There's a site plan. And if you recall, he's got a large retaining wall on the backside because of the topography of the land and how it drops down. So he's going to connect his screen to this wall, connect it back to the house. And I believe the off from the pool is within setbacks. So again, staff recommending that approval of this based on his revised criteria, and it meets the 6 criteria for the variance. So is there any questions? From table? No? Mr. Stimmel, do you have anything you want to say or? Okay, guys. All right.
Ask before a vote is taken. So quasi judicial hearing that we have a motion to accept the staff packet into the record.
Okay, so I want to make a motion.
Make a motion to accept the staff packet into the record.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We need to open it up to the. Okay, guys. So we'll open up to anybody in the audience who want to speak about this pool variance. Okay. All right, we'll close the public forum. All right, let's bring it back to the table. Anybody want to make a motion to approve or deny?
Yeah. Motion to approve.
Okay, motion made to approve. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. You're good. Share it.
Happy man.
Okay, moving on to new business, and we've got a few items on here, and we'll start with the 4th Street and State Road 50, and this is an ordinance 2024-03. It is a public hearing, so I think at least you have to read anything.
So the way that Brad had done it is he packaged them together as one presentation. but I think we need to do them separately for the record. So I'll read ordinance 2024-03 first, and that is the small scale future land use amendment. Ordinance of the town of Oakland, Florida, adopting a small scale town future land use map amendment of its comprehensive plan from commercial to mixed use activity center for the project Fourth Street Village for certain real property owned by Oakland West 50 LLC Investments LLC, generally located on the south side of West Colonial Drive at Fourth Street, as more particularly described herein. Occupied with 21.25 acres, making findings and providing for conflict severability and for an effective date.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Tidrow, are you gonna lead us through that and tell us what's going on? Okay.
Good evening, Sarah Tedrow, 215 North Yola Drive, Orlando, Florida, here on behalf of the applicant. I don't know, do I just have to motion to somebody to click?
Yes.
Okay, you can go to the next slide, please.
Maybe.
If it works, of course.
Yes.
I know you all had a really long packet that was submitted as part of this comp plan amendment and rezoning. So we're going to try to condense this down to kind of simplify exactly what the asks are. We have our whole project team here tonight in case there's any specific questions of everybody on the development team. It shows you an aerial of where the subject property is located. And if you go to the next slide, it'll show you where we're located in relation on your future land use map and on your current zoning map. The proposed future land use on the 21.25 acres is mixed use activity center. It's currently mixed use commercial and is a PD rezoning being requested. For your comprehensive plan, the PD zoning district is allowed in all of your future land use designations. So that would be a compatible zoning designation. And policy 1.5.2 talks about the intent and the purpose of that mixed use activity center, specifically being for urban style development for properties located adjacent to and in close proximity to State Road 50. Obviously, Oakland has an incredible amount of charm. State Road 50, I'm not sure that's the first adjective that most people would ascribe to State Road 50, however. So we have 60 to 66,000 cars going by every day, fronting our property. And so it's been designated by the town as a place for urban development. And you can see that if you go to the next slide as well. We are part of Village A. So the town's mixed use multifamily villages under your State Road 50 vision plan that was adopted January 24th, 2023, specifically called this property out to have the exact type of mixed use that we are contemplating in the submitted concept plan that is part of the PD rezoning, and that would be attached to the development agreement that lays out the development standards that we would have to adhere to if this project were to be approved. You go to the next slide, it talks through kind of what that vision plan was wanting. One of the paragraphs taken directly from that vision plan talks about how the plan was intended to benefit the town for tax base, aesthetic character, and to enhance the quality of life for the residents. It was meant to create a sense of place from multiple locations along Colonial Drive, to create downtown village atmospheres that encourage pedestrian activity, shopping, dining, and staples of everyday life. The benefit of having this type of urban development along State Road 50 is that you're able to capture traffic, but you're also able to offer people a place where they can live and be in close proximity, walking distance to things they want to do at night. A mixed use building that would have retail and restaurants on a first floor and could have a few residential units above it. And if you put into context what the project is, 190 units spread over the acreage we have, and then the number of buildings we have is really not that much. Mike Morrissey is going to come up and talk to you about how this plan exactly lays out. Some of our buildings only have 12 units in them for multifamily. So it is really spread out. And those are 2 to 3 story buildings. Some of the standalone multifamily only 2-story, with the mixed use having that first floor retail, office, commercial, and some of those residential units above it. But again, it captures what that visioning plan was asking for in terms of creating a sense of place, rather than just having it be strip center commercial after strip center commercial around State Road 50 with no sense of place, but instead becoming a pass-through community. You go to the next slide, it shows that we're also located in what the town has designated as an urban corridor design district. Again, the town has looked at this in multiple ways. So not just through that visioning plan, but also through your design districts that have been adopted, that this is one of those designated urban corridors of the town and has specific design district policies related to it in regard to accommodating specifically mixed use buildings, larger buildings within the most intense part of that urban corridor, providing a center that's multimodal for commuters and residents, and to provide a town with a predictable outcome for growth and development. These are the types of projects that should be predictable because coming sort of copy and paste from that visioning plan that the town had adopted. So next, please. I'm going to bring Mike up to talk about the visioning plan and how that relates to the PUD plan that we had submitted as part of our PUD recently.
Hello, Mike Morrissey, 948 Lake Rim Drive, Winter Garden. I think one of the interesting aspects of this is that it's very rare for any municipality at whatever scale the municipality is to develop in a progressive manner something that they want to see as a town, vote on that, and then have a developer actually look at this plan and look at the concept and say, I don't want to change a thing. I want to do this just the way it is. And they actually have embraced the plan. They have embraced the architectural character and the uses. So from that standpoint, everything that we did from a visioning piece with PNC and the County Commission is in this PUD. So there's been no change to date of what the uses are, what the size of the buildings, all of that criteria and follow. So if you have any questions about as we move forward, there are going to be engineering aspects that I'm sure will have some development impact, but stormwater, other aspects of wetlands, and any of those forms will continue the process of the development. But other than that, we are actually, I'm saying it, I feel fortunate that the developer looked at the plan and said, this is fantastic. We want to go forward with this plan. So we've got basically 5 blocks that we're dealing with. It is a street-centered sense of place development rather than parking lots. This is part of our urban border district package that the developers follow. So if there's there's not much else to say other than we've already gone through the visioning plan as a town. And so do you have any questions about how we're moving forward?
Anybody got anything? So Mike, I know that we came up with this. How long ago did we come up with this?
I believe this was 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
As the dates were.
Yeah, roughly back then. So do you think? And there'll be questions for the developer as well, but when you drive down and see parking lot, faces 50. I mean, do you think that would be better served if you had more retail and more hunting 50?
The 50 environment is a bit difficult to get pedestrian traffic to acclimate to that street corridor at 66,000 trips. Part of this plan is part of the Complete Streets program. We with Florida DOT, as we build out these areas and we introduce intersections, they have their criteria is to lower the speed, design speed of any of these arterial roads when we do have this type of development. So what's happening is as time goes on, there will be aspects to this that the state will look at 50, again, not as a pass through, but as a destination. So we're hoping that this will start to influence that aspect of lowering that design speed. But right now, that's a bit of a problem for where we're siding up to basically to engage these in the more private, or not private, but public pedestrian streets.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts were there was the commercial buildings closer to the road versus the parking, but you still have the streets behind them to access similar to what maybe you see if you go east on 50, where the buildings are there. I'm not a big fan of residential mixed in with it. So I kind of had a different vision of this. And the reason I say that is I think this corner is a pretty darn prominent corner where there's a lot of different uses you could do on there. Maybe it's not strictly just the commercial and, you know, mixed use that way where you got retail and offices on top, or maybe it's something like that's, you know, you could medical or something like that. You know, I'm just throwing different ideas out there. Of course, you got to talk to those people, but I just don't like how the residential's mixed close in there.
Well, the introduction of residential and commercial is really critical to create a synergy between uses. So it really kind of goes back to all the way back to like a Paris model where you have 5 stories, 4 residential, 1 is retail, and that becomes very walkable forward. So that's really the ability to create a sustainable project is mixing those uses.
Yeah, but it's, you know, 50 is always a barrier. 50 is a barrier, you know, it's always a pedestrian type barrier to look at. And getting across for residential to be on that, to that side.
Probably all will be serving these people that are actually living on there. Nobody's.
No matter what.
You're right. I mean, and you could put a crosswalk there and have the light flash for 3 minutes. It just, yeah, it's.
So along that line, if that is the plan, how does the parking work out for the residents versus retail? How does that work in the plan?
So the parking is all factored into the retail and the residential use.
Well,
No, but meaning, do the residential
units get
reserve parking? Or are they next to the retail customers?
They have, well, so we have both internal parking, we have street parking. And so the internal parking, you know, we have the residential as part of the internal parking and then a degree of both internal and street parking.
Internal being inside the building?
No, internal.
Internal surface lots, right? So these courts, so how many total parking spots do you have in here?
I don't have the numbers are in the development program, but I don't have them with me.
I'm just thinking, you know, if you live there and you don't have some sort of private parking for your,
Adjacency.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I'm sure the residential component will want to have that type of parking requirements that they have there.
I think that's the challenge that a lot of these developments have that have popped up recently is the parking is so slim. And so it's a challenge to get in and park and be
Yeah.
adjacent, and then residents end up leaving their car close by in that. So that was my biggest concern about this, was just the number of parking spots and adjacency. And
I
Like
think
you've
it would
got a-
have to be enough.
yeah, 110-room hotel with, you know, multifamily mixed use with a small parking lot in the front. That's tight.
Well, I think one of the aspects of this is the scale of the buildings. What you're seeing there is not 3, 4-story, 5-story buildings. These are, some of those buildings are 2-story buildings. So the development program is part of, you know, the restriction of parking. We definitely have the parking to complement the development program. They're smaller structures, and the actual program itself is based on the amount of parking that we have.
So are all these buildings the same height?
No,
Intended to
we have
be,
2-story buildings, 3 buildings, and 1 4-story building. Hotel.
the hotel's a 4-story?
Mhm.
So even, yeah. That's the challenge, is you got a very small parking lot out in front of that quadrant there. All your main parking is in the very back, which is no adjacency. So unless the hotel's doing valet parking, which I'm guessing this is probably gonna be like a select serve hotel and won't have valet parking.
We don't have a developer
Yeah.
for that yet, but that's the intent is for a, restaurant on the ground floor as well as the.
And then if they put a good restaurant in there, it's just gonna drive even more traffic and
Yep.
challenge that you get right there. Jane, to your point, were you thinking that you want buildings like what Orlando did in the iDrive area where they're over by New Universal, they're
So I
we're
would,
trying to put everything right up on the street now.
we have, I think you had Village B maybe in there where the buildings kind of sat on the street, front of the street, and then behind it was the parking. You know, you had your business and your profile of your business and the, you know,
Yeah,
50. You know, you had a buffer between 50 and, you know, a landscape buffer, a grass buffer between 50 and your building. And no parking in the front, you know, picture.
Fowler Grove.
Fowler Road.
Fowler Grove, exactly like that, yeah.
Road, it kind of that type of,
Yeah.
and all the parking's behind and then you have that connection between everything with the inner roads where if you wanted to go from A to B and then possibly down to Village 2, there's that connection point, interior road that you wouldn't have to get back 50 to hit, right? I mean, that was
That's
kind
the
of.
full intent of this, is that
Right.
these are also public right of ways, they're not parking lots.
Right, so that road that runs all four, east would be a public.
And we're actually intending, once, you know, at some point, there'll be a connection to the east, going all the way to,
Yeah, so this, I don't know, if you guys recall, or if you guys, there, this same scenario was brought to us maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, and we zoned the property to be, or the use to be a mixed use commercial. But I think if you, tonight, it's mixed use with activity center, which throws in the residential component to it, is what it does. But right now you could do the commercial and you could, you know, build it the way you want to build it. But if you do the activity, if I'm not mistaken, the activity would throw in the residential component.
I would really prefer for Brad to.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, Stephanie. Love for him to be here for that. I mean, that might be a question we got to hold for Brad. Hi.
Yeah, I would say that the current future land use designation does have a residential.
The future.
So mixed use commercial allows up to 8 dwelling units per acre, which is 25 right. So both of them have the component of allowing there to be both residential and residential uses.
So in your definition of activity center versus mixed use commercial,
It frankly has higher ones under the activities. And the activity center meshes more closely with what the vision plan had contemplated. I mean, it was one of the reasons that the plan was designed exactly the way it's shown is because it's taken from the vision plan itself. I think when Mike told you, it's interesting to not have any changes being requested. Really doesn't have any changes being requested from what the visioning plan itself set forth. And that was a town initiative. That wasn't a private developer driven initiative. And a lot of time and thought was put into that before it was adopted. And so that's why when this project came forward, it really is like a copy and paste from that vision plan. I mean, the architectural typologies are from the vision plan, the building layouts, the block sizes. We have an event venue, and I think part of the design was in order where that building E is on the plan around the preserved wetlands that we have on the property. It's to have an outdoor event center so we can have congregations of folks being able to come there, maybe close off the streets directly next to building P. So that was one of the reasons too, it made sense not to have all of the parking necessarily behind those buildings, family on A and B, like you had mentioned. So, I mean, some of it was done intentionally and thoughtfully in order to make the project have a better flow internally to it as well. Certainly have seen the types of projects that you're talking about. But again, these building orientations and layouts were taken from the town's vision plan.
yeah. I mean, the layout itself, if you look at it, take out, just leave the blocks and don't label the blocks.
Mhm.
Probably works fine, except for I'd like to see more up on the street, obviously. And more parking behind. So,
that's the emphasis is on a pedestrian activity street. So that east-west street that is south of 50 is a primary street, the north-south core street, again, primary for pedestrian activity.
yeah, I understand. And I understand you're trying to make that pedestrian, the inner street, a pedestrian street. I just hate driving down the road and seeing a parking lot. That's the thing.
Well, if we look at the scale of the buildings and the scale of the blocks, they're actually, and we go back to the design code, that gives us that breakup of what we're seeing currently with the more strip center retail, where you have parking in front. We've got actual buildings that are blocking that parking. We also have site walls where there aren't buildings, and so there will be a break of a visual break of a 3-foot site wall and landscape on the street.
Right. I mean, we have site walls down at racetrack, but you still see them. Yes, everything. So,
We do have a planned transit stop in that A block.
if Lynx brings a bus down,
Correct.
if Lynx brings a bus down, right, right.
But that's part of the mobility plan and the complete streets program that DOT is wanting to bring these streets into a framework that is just not only for vehicle traffic.
You guys have anything else before you open it up?
Is there anything in that, is this all like one building at a time that could stretch out over a 10-year period? Or is this like the intent to build this all at once, with notwithstanding the hotel?
I don't have the answer to how it will be phased, but as it's phased, commercial, because it's vertically integrated, the commercial and the residential would be done at the same time. There was a previous application that came into the town where this property was looked at for a mixed-use development. The developer ended up kind of pulling back and saying, we're not going to do the commercial now, a little bit later. And so that got denied. Actually, it didn't get submitted because staff had told it won't work. Correct. We need that commercial.
So the mixed use buildings or the multifamily buildings are gonna get built for sure, you know that.
And that, we're in the same boat
It's-
before. That's
Right. You know, those are gonna get built. It's whether the mixed use and hotel buildings only. So you gotta kind of look at this as those are probably the long off.
I don't agree with that. The primary buildings here are in the orange. You'll see the excuses that the developer will definitely look at this as a holistic development. I don't know what the phasing would be.
Provided he can rent them. He gets tenants.
Right.
Right, that's the key, is getting the tenants,
Yep.
so. That's why the multifamily buildings will go for sure, because he has to build the retail below and to get the multifamily above.
I think one of the key components is as a overall project, you want to build the entire project. You don't want to build it.
We do, yes.
Yeah.
Speaking from, put my developer hat on though,
Sure.
I only want to build it if I got tenants, so.
And two concerns, the one, the parking concern that both of you all had mentioned, the development agreement does specifically say we have to meet parking, so the conceptual plan doesn't do a great job of highlighting.
Yeah, parking is a real concern,
Right, and
Parking
that
is-
has to be met, and I'm sure Brad can probably, when he gets here. do
Yeah.
a bit of a-
especially around that hotel.
on that. You're 100% right, and so that, the town code at the time that we submit plans is what we have to adhere to in terms of parking. And that's going to be true for those site design elements when we come in, because this is not as granular, right? So this doesn't show you kind of the scale and the massing that I think you would see from a street level view of the project. But again, those types of massing and scale pictures were included in the visioning plan and copy and pasted into our application as to what we said we were going to do on the site as well. And in terms of the phasing, it does say specifically in the DA as well, that in no case will a phase be developed that cannot, along with previous phases, stand alone as an independent project. So to build out any part of this phase, I mean, from a cost perspective, right, for the developers that I do work for all over the state, I mean, you don't just do one little building when you have to build out the parking lot for the entire building and you're bringing utilities. And I mean, you're doing the site work. We're likely having this stubbed out ready for folks to come on in. I mean, I would imagine that this would be, especially with the demand in this area. I mean, I've had clients doing projects all along 50. There's a lot of demand for retail and for residential around here. So I can see that there would be a good demand for folks to want to have this be a pad ready site for people to come in. And especially with that mixed use building, I mean, you're building it, so it has to have commercial, those shells on the first floor for non-residential uses.
One more thing about the parking. Okay, you've got mixed use, and you've got multifamily, and then you got this hotel you're going to cram these cars into. And now you add an event space. Other than this building and that gazebo, we have no serious event space in Oakland that anyone can walk in and rent for a wedding or party or whatever. Then you've got those cars. Where are they going to be?
It is all considered into that parking plan, but again, it has to meet the code. So if obviously, if there's any issues with it, we'll find out really quickly.
Well, I think you have a problem with cross utilization of parking. If you have residential, hotel, hotels fill up 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Cars park all night until it's time to go, leave at 11 o'clock. So it works great for businesses because they can cross utilize their parking. Your business shut down at 5, okay, then you can use that parking lot for hotels, for overnight parking. I don't know, hey, Brian.
Should we clap for you?
Me and I, supposed not get along.
I've got a parking question for you. One of the questions was whether there's going to be sufficient parking on a plan like this. Obviously, we didn't designate the exact number of parking spots. The development agreement contemplates that it will be per code. But there's a concern that it would be insufficiently parked given the different types of uses and how the property is laid out on the concept plan.
Excuse me, Shane, would it be okay if we call a 5-minute recess for Wayne and I to head outside and talk about something?
Sure. Yeah. 5-minute recess, everybody. Sorry.
Glad you made it, Brian.
Thank you for making it.
Okay, guys. We're back. All right. Brad, you want to give us what you know?
I apologize if I put this with Wade Trister, who's a contracted town planner. So in terms of the parking issue, Mr. Parker kind of gave me a little update of what's been discussed. How we would handle that if were to be approved, that would be a limiting factor as they would come in to do something. Because one of the things we would have to cross-check, because we don't have the specific use types, at this point in the process. So as if we come through permitting and we start to know what the use types are, we have to balance out against your parking standards that are there. So that's a limitation potentially for the project. And that's why it's important, what's proposed, these are maximum numbers of units, so it could always be less than that based on other constraints or limitations, and parking could be one of those limited. So that's how that would be addressed in there. We have right now an unknown in terms of what the actual specific uses are. So hopefully that.
So procedurally, what are we approving, or what's the process?
Procedurally, on the ordinance, it's taking the current small scale future land use amendment, which is a mixed use commercial, and you're changing it now to a mixed use activity center. So do you want to explain to everybody what the difference is between
Yes.
the two?
Yeah, so the mixed use activity center was actually a district that the town created not too long ago. When we went through that transition to the design standard. And what this mixed use activity center is, it's a more intensive development kind of thing that's really focused on a mixed use project, a town center level of project. The mixed use commercial that it's currently it's more focused on the commercial uses, where kind of the residential is kind of more secondary. In this mixed use activity center, it's all together. It's residential, commercial, it's all the different pieces together. And that's why in your comprehensive plan, what it says is the only place that this district is appropriate in the comp plan is on your State Road 50 corridor, or it says or near, but basically it's on State Road 50. Because it also then ties into your urban design corridor district, which is also there, and it matches that. So that's the difference between the two. Is the mixed use activity center was created to put here on State Road 50 to promote kind of these town center kind of projects, true mixed use projects, where the commercial is more smaller scale, not as broad.
Okay.
So if this gets approved tonight, then it comes back before us in the future.
Right. Well, yeah, if this goes through and if the town commission ultimately approves the small scale land use amendment and the rezoning to the PD, If it gets approved, then the next step would be to come back to you all, as well as the Appearance Review Board and the Town Commission, under the preliminary subdivision plan, as well as the appearance review process of that. So it absolutely will come back to you again if this gets approved. And at that point, you'll have more of the details of the design and what things are and what they look like. At this point, really, it's conceptual, it's the idea. What this does do, though, if you approve it, it does set those maximums. Those, you know, they can't go above these numbers of these units, these square footages. Their general overall plan, when they come in to finish it out, flesh it out some more, still has to look generally within that framework of how things are laid out. Can't be significantly different in terms of, you know, where the buildings are being shown, they're being proposed or anything like that. They have to be compliant with that. If they come in with something significantly different than that, then it comes all back through the process where we are today for them to amend what may or may not get approved. So yeah, this will definitely come back. If it gets approved, it'll definitely come back to you all with those next steps of the process.
Is the intent with Village A, B, and C for the buildings to be similar in design to make it flow and be more pleasing, as we say, to our neighborhood? How does,
I think, yeah, the idea is right, that those would build out, yes, with the design standards that you already have in place, on which was when that happened, because we had just started at that time on the vision plan. Is it really, one of the things I think came out of that process was what that vision plan talked about. You didn't need to change anything you already had here in your design district code and requirements. You had that in place to do that. What was envisioned in that vision plan?
And I'd like to add that the vision plan came after the design districts. And it was intended to inform developers about the character and instead of just being code wording, it gave an idea of what this could look like. That was the intent of the vision plan. So that intent is following through with this developer.
Right.
Right, and Michael, this is strictly a concept plan that you came up with.
Correct.
Is the developer's agreement, does it get executed commissioning now, or is there
It's upon approval of the ordinance.
after the second reading? Right. Okay, so there's time to, if you want to amend something in it.
There's time for the town commission to reconsider things. Yes.
And so I think too, if you all as a board would want to make recommendations for something to change or different, and then make that as part of your motion. As well.
I don't,
Tonight.
my fear is, you know, if you're doing block by block and, you know, I don't know if the developer has a hotel LOI yet, or, you know, retail, LOIs, or if it's just, we're gonna take this and clear it off and cut a road in, and then it ends up looking like the spot behind racetrack, where it's just vacant land.
So this developer and this scale is able to and wanting to develop this as a holistic project.
In one shot. Hotel, everything.
Other than the hotel, I think that the rest of the buildings are the primary piece of the development.
So then the other question, you know, I know we did this a few years ago, and things have changed over the last, few years. Office isn't as prevalent as office used to be. People don't go to the office. Is this the, it's a lot of residential. I don't really like the residential right there. It's the right spot for a hotel, that type of stuff. Yeah. Is the developer here? Does he want to say anything? Or Tara, are you speaking on behalf?
I represent him.
Sure.
Steve.
Yeah.
And if you want to say something before you open it to the public, right then.
Steve Healy, represent developer. Happy to answer any questions right now.
Okay. I think we've got those. For anybody got anything else for Steve? No? Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. That's great.
Quick comment.
Yes, you ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
On this.
Call anymore.
I'm not trying to stall too either. On the parking concerns as well, if there is a concern about how much parking is going to be there for the residential uses specifically, we can certainly put in the DA that it's, parking for residential is to be reserved. So that if there's a concern that there wouldn't be enough for some of the uses, we figured that would probably be the case that those developers would want to have some reserved parking, but we can put that in PD to make that a condition as well.
Yeah. Correct. That's the developer, so everybody knows the developer agreement is really the rules,
Yeah, that's good.
engagement.
Yeah.
And what the developer is going to do. So if you said, well, hey, Mr. Developer, you have to do 150,000 square foot of retail or commercial, that's what he's gonna, stipulate that out there.
Do we review the development or is that just
In the packet,
part of the package, right?
packets, the back of the packet. I mean, you can look at it.
Was it was in our package that was sent out? Because I don't remember seeing it.
There were 3.
Yeah, there's 3. I didn't see the development agreement though.
I got the last one.
That's the packet number.
Okay. I did scroll through them all. Okay, not that I would have read it all, but
What's the 1,000 pages?
But in the developer's agreement itself right now really makes a lot of reference back to your code. There's not any deviations of us asking for something different than what the visioning plan, what the urban corridor design district says, or what your town code already says. I mean, it's pretty set in there. So if there are things above and beyond, for example, we would use your parking metrics that have already been set forth that very specifically delineate spots for different types of uses or number of units and types of residential units. We could put reservation of parking for residential units must be provided on site. And then that would be something that your staff would have to evaluate when we go through that site plan process. And then those reserved number of units couldn't be taken into consideration for mixed units, right? So that would be another assurance that you have the efficient parking, though I firmly believe your code contemplated how to achieve sufficient parking, and I'm sure Brad would agree with that as well. Brad didn't get to do a presentation, so I feel like I kind of stole his thunder, but it was a staff's recommendation for approval on this project, unless something has changed since Brad got caught in traffic. Okay, good. So there was a recommendation from your professional staff for both of the requests before you this evening, and I think that's because it does perfectly align quite literally with your vision plan and those district policies.
So, like I said, my beef is, it's just, there's a lot of.
Same, and when we visited this, 2 years ago, whatever, that was kind of going back to the same concerns we had then, of it being residential and then again with the buildings not being on 50. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I was just saying, when we visited this a year or 2 ago, we're basically having the same concerns now as what we did then, as far as the placement of the buildings and then again, having too much residential in the area.
I mean, I look at it, when you look at it in color, just look at it like. Development.
I'd like to respond because that is something that it's part of our development program in the visioning plan and also in the design district to make sure that any type of residential development was going to be required to have the mix of uses. And it also has that synergy between residential and the commercial that keeps the sustainability issue. When you go to a single use, that turnover starts to happen and you see that turnover kind of degrade the project over time. When you mix these uses with people walking and living in that space, those are much more sustainable projects than just a single commercial mix use.
And I like the mixed use concept. I really do. I mean, it's great synergy for businesses and residents. But when I look at this particular one, especially this corner, I think this corner is better served. Just not so much residential. It's a prominent corner right in the smack dab in the middle of the busy part of town, right there. Residential retail component fits down 50 other places probably. But I don't know, that's just, that's, I'm only one vote here on the table, but that's where I'm at on it. I don't know, we open it up to the floor to the, anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Because this is a public hearing, so does anybody in the audience want to talk about this? No. Oh, yes. And you have to come up and you have to state your name and address.
Ann Fulton, 227 Largo Vista. As a longtime resident and someone who drives this corridor every day, along with my high school daughter and a lot of other people, I agree with Shane. To me, this is if you talk to any resident in Oakland, everyone says no more apartments and definitely don't want a hotel. But I understand that the vision plan says what it says. And none of us were there to argue it, so that's our bad. But this intersection, for example, there's the Oakland or the Johns Lake Motel. So there's already people living there. We all know it's run down but there's already people running across 50 there because everyone wants to go to the Chevron to grab a cold drink. And you put this there. Okay, so that's gonna add more traffic to that light. And then you have a turn-in area. There's no turn lane there. So it's gonna be just like they built Costco. It's gonna back up traffic and then people stopping to turn in, especially if you have a hotel there. It's going to be a disaster traffic wise. Next, you said approximately 190 max residential units. Right now in Orange County, there's already a bus driver shortage. There's kids sitting on the floor of our school buses, literally, because we don't have enough buses to drive the kids around. So you add in that many more residential coming down this area where you already have kids who are sitting on the floor of the school bus, it's going to be even more of a disaster for our area. So to me, having spoken to hundreds, literally hundreds of residents this last month, they've all said, please no more apartments and please no hotel. You know, we all want to, we know we have to have some sort of commercial growth to sustain our town, but we don't want to turn into just another turnpike exit. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, sir. How you doing? So my name is Scott Perone. I live at 719 Regina Circle. So first off, I was just looking at this, and are you guys proposing that we leave this hotel? That was.
We don't own that.
Okay,
That's owned by someone else.
all right, just curious. And I'm sorry, I apologize, but I don't have a big problem with the residential. I kind of feel like we need the residential in order to attract businesses into, these buildings. That could be tax revenue too, if I'm not mistaken, but in the hotel, we don't have a hotel anywhere in Woodland. I don't have a dog in that fight, but I don't personally see it as a huge problem, but I kind of like your idea, Shane, about pushing the buildings up against 50 just to give it more of a town feel, but I don't know if that's in your plans or not, but I personally am not adamantly opposed to the apartments. I get the apartment that we built on Oakland Ave, everyone doesn't like that. It's a big facility, it's an eyesore, and it's on a 2-lane road. This would be a 6-lane road and traffic might be able to absorb a little better, but it's just my opinion. So, but I actually kind of like this. I feel like we need more. And this having a little main street would give us like a little town feel. And if we had a nice gathering place on the lakeside there, that would be great too. So that's just my thoughts.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Good thoughts. Thank you. Anyone else? Sir.
It's Kurt Guys. I'm at 409 East Tension. 2 years ago, I came in this room and I was the only one that stood up in favor of that project that we were proposing back then. The main reason was it was gonna get rid of John's Lake Motel. That property sold for $2 million about a year ago, just to a new owner. Unfortunately, the town of Oakland has bought that for a long time, because I don't see that this developer is gonna be able to afford to pay 2 million or even more than that to buy that piece of property. But with that said, we sit on the highest millage rates in Orange County. Yeah, we see our population going up, but our millage rates aren't coming down. And the blame is because we don't have a commercial tax base. So until we as residents, whether we're been here for a long time or moving in recently that weren't here when the plan was developed, we need commercial development. And so a mixed use development like this is something that, you know, I am in favor of. A hotel, I have family that comes into town all the time. They have to stay in Winter Garden or Claremont because there is no hotel in the local area for them. It's unfortunate that Johns Lake is there because I don't really understand how the developer is going to turn cars around when he gets to that property line. But that's what his plan currently shows, is it dead ends into that property. So definitely something that the committee needs to look at. Parking is, you know, obviously it's an issue no matter where you go, and that's why you have zoning ordinances and requirements when a developer submits. So that will all be worked out, I'm sure. His use has to meet the parking requirement. So Oakland, it used to be a really tiny little town out here, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and it's grown. And we just got to get used to the growth and do it the right way. I think the long use plan is exactly what this community needs. So I'm definitely in favor of this project.
Thanks. Thank you. Good. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Evening, I'm Kristen Keller from 2511 Stone Creek Court here in Oakland. I have concerns over, I agree with the visual from the street of the parking. I feel like that takes away from, you know, what we're trying to kind of keep here in Oakland. I have concerns over the density of residential in that area, and again, what that would do for traffic and things like that. Again, I think there's some spot on points about parking. I don't see how all these people are, you know, because again, you don't know what businesses are going to take that retail or that commercial space. If they're going to leave at 5 o'clock, it could be, you know, businesses and shops that may be open later that could conflict with the residents. I have concerns over that. I was also curious because at one point there was mention of a 5-story building, and then I don't know if, and then it was 2 and 3 and 4. I don't know if we have like a height limit or how many stories, but it just seems like, you know, that's something we need to be mindful of so that we don't have some monstrosity on the, you know, some large building out of nowhere kind of. And I have extreme concern over a hotel because while I think it'd be wonderful to have a place for your family to visit, there's not enough people, you know, there's not enough happening to support that. And I have huge concerns over us becoming a turnpike exit and that transient traffic that a hotel, you know, no offense, I love our town, but people aren't flying into Orlando Airport and Ubering out to Oakland to spend the weekend, right? So I don't know that we need a hotel here because I just don't think we have enough to support it. And my concern is always if there's, whether it's restaurants or whatever, we've got to have an ongoing population that can support that. And I do agree that we do need commercial development. We need thoughtful commercial development in order to sustain our town and address our tax base and our services. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Anybody else here at the table? Okay. So, I mean, that's, I've voiced my concerns, on it, you know, if probably on votes. So you guys spoke out in the audience and, you know, yes, everybody agrees. I don't think anybody doubts the development that goes along. And yes, if it turns out to be residential with you know, apartments or for rent, you know, that's considered commercial and there's an incentive there. That's a pro to it. Is that the right number to have there, or does it need to be a little smaller? And do you tuck it in the back where it's not so prevalent in the front? I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Mike, if that's something to do, or does it need to be intermixed, interdispersed?
My So if I can address that, the critical aspect of the residential with the commercial, I can't be more emphatic that it is part of that sustainability. And the idea of vertically integrated residential with the commercial, first off, it's pretty difficult to do from a finance perspective. Sure you understand and agree with that. This developer has experience in that, and they have experience in tech quality projects. The idea that it is residential is a component of the overall project, not as a pure residential project. That's the big difference, and that was what the town was basically trying to imply, that we wanted to have mixed uses, not just single use developments. So that was the vision, that was the plan, and then this is where we are with a developer that's ready to go and do that. Sure. If you have comments on the amount of residential, maybe that's something that you can have a discussion about. But I think it's critical to have that vertically integrated, not just putting commercial up front and then putting residential in the back.
I understand.
I just hope that the parking doesn't work out, that the residential overtakes the
Commercial side,
right?
it's my fear. Because let's say you have somebody that wants to come in that would be good for the area, but then they see we have limited spaces and then they leave and then they're down in Claremont or someplace in my garden and we're stuck with an empty spot again.
For this,
That's my fear, is that it's, when you look at it, and I look at it, it becomes
The
multifamily development.
right, that's,
It does.
we don't want an apartment complex.
No, we don't.
That's correct. Yes, we don't.
We don't want an apartment complex.
Right, but when I look at it, and yes, I mean, there's square footages of retail, and, you know, retail, and if it's offices or whatever, part of the mixed use, like I said before, there's not a lot of demand for offices right now.
Right. It's primarily retail because of that reason.
Right, so you would have to have single story retail, because most people that shop, they don't want to climb stairs or go up stairs to retail. So you want it all single story if you can have it. You know, there's the concept of you can do the retail on the bottom and residential on top of it. If you do
That
that.
is what this plan is.
Yeah, I envision it's just like Avalon Park, right? It's retail all below, restaurant, workout, small shop floors, and then 2 or 3 stories of.
I would actually put this closer to the character and the scale. It's closer to New England Avenue, Winter Park. So you've got 2-story, 3-story, and then 1 4-story.
Bougie for me, I don't get a Winter Park.
You should go see it.
Why do we want to go there?
And the development itself of New England Avenue is basically one of the models that we use for the vision.
And maybe Brad can jump in on this one too with the parking, but you know, as we go to design the site out and take it from what's conceptual before you to an actual engineered site plan, that's when these maximums start to get eaten away, right? Because we have to put all of your setbacks, we have to maintain a certain amount of open space, we have to have your landscaping, we have to have your buffering, we have to have the parking met for every single aspect of the project. So again, when we have to build out in each of the things that we bring forth that are part of this project, which you've heard that it's intended to be a single phase. But when we bring forth any site plan, it has to be able to stand on its own completely in terms of all of those metrics of your development standards. So the way that this is going to get designed has to take into account that full build out later, because we can't go back and create spots out of nowhere, right? So we have to design that from the front end to ensure that all of the uses that we have will be sufficiently parked. That becomes a problem for attracting end users, which we understand. And so knowing that, we don't want to design it without having proper parking accommodations. You'll have a backstop in terms of your professional staff checking those plans as they come through. You know, one of the things I'd like to impress upon you all is that I wasn't here when y'all adopted the visioning principles, right? And maybe some of you weren't part of that visioning plan, and certainly some of the residents said that they weren't part of that visioning plan. That's a vision plan that was adopted, and one of the lines in it was to provide predictability for developers. And so when you take and copy and paste the village plan from the vision plan, and we submit it to you all and copy and paste your code, and then the response is, you know, this isn't what we want, that sort of hurts the ability to be predictable. And that's, we don't have LOIs, because you can't go solicit LOIs, or we don't have any assurances that we can do what we're saying we're able to do. You know, when those end users say, well, you have a vision plan. I mean, I think tonight shows we can't say that you can definitely do what's in the town's code or their vision plan, because it might not get approved. So we would love to have that assurance to say, we have a plan, this is going to be approved, and then start to attract those end users to come in to fulfill what you all had adopted as guiding policies for having sustainable development. If this was just commercial, that is exactly what is wrong with urban sprawl. It's just single-use automotive dependent developments. And I think that's why this plan was done, to reduce that type of urban sprawl, where people are wondering, why do rural areas get developed with single-family homes and townhomes? Because we don't have the ability to do 3-story buildings with a couple residential units on top. And when I say a couple, I mean, some of these buildings have 16 dwelling units in it. One of them is designed for 12 dwelling units. These are not real true multifamily buildings. We're not downtown Orlando, 200 units to the acre, right? I mean, the max that you're getting over the project site is 10 dwelling units to the acre. So we're not trying to do a very dense and intense development. It's spread out nicely. And in terms of recommendations, if it's a recommendation for approval, consistent with your professional staff, consistent with your comp plan, your code, and that visioning policy, but you'd like to see some things in terms of assurance. Perhaps it is a consideration of flipping the buildings on the front. I don't know if it works. We'd have to go back and even see if that violates other policies in your code if we did that. But that's certainly something we can take a look at and bring to your town commission. Or if it's that the parking has to be able to be met and reserved parking provided for residential, that could be a recommendation incorporated into the development agreement as well. So we would love to get feedback that gives us something actionable, because if it's just, you know, if you just don't like it, I can't really do a whole lot about that, I suppose. But if there's parts of it that you think could be tweaked to get you to a yes, rather than just a recommendation for denial, I feel like that'd be really productive, especially in terms of anybody ever looking at this site again, trying to figure out what the heck can they do if the last developer just submitted everything according to the code and it didn't get approved.
In the developers agreement, does it have anything in there about users, controlled users at all coming into the
Meaning like a prohibited user list?
right, anything like that, or what you would like to see as a town resident, so you're not
What's in the code? Yeah, it's uses.
It's just what's in your,
filed in the code use.
yes, sir. We didn't do anything specific.
Town you couldn't stipulate that, hey, we don't want to see this type of user, we don't want to see a CBD shop sticking up there or anything like that.
Certainly could.
You could.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I mean, last thing you want to do is see this building sitting across the road and you got these neon lights or these LED lights, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
We had that at one time where. Something you could have. It was not a favorable tenant and the owner of the building did not realize that they were subleased. And that quickly was addressed.
But if there are a list of uses that are not desirable, especially because this is intended to be a village district, I mean, that's why the streets are designed the way that they are, the event center and everything else. So if there's users that you don't think would meet what that vision is for this area, we are more than happy to consider putting those in as voluntary, prohibited uses.
Okay, and then I'm sure that developer has a number in mind that he needs to get for the potential uses to make the project work. If it does go down that path, maybe settle on 191, is that
190.
190?
190 was a maximum number. When we developed the vision plan, I think we had a number that was 180, but from traffic, I think that was the traffic engineering from the town was saying about 190.
Yeah. So again, the difference between what's currently, because currently right now it's zoned where, or the land use allows multifamily on this property. It's already there. So what's the difference between the current use and future? Or the proposed use? What's the difference?
Between activity center and.
Yeah, what's the difference?
8 dwelling units an acre, to about 10 dwelling units an acre.
Eight dwelling units an acre. And then you're asking for 10, so more.
Correct.
Mixed use activity center goes up to a maximum of 25.
So what's wrong with just staying with the 8?
And that density just, it is really hard to build 2 and 3 story buildings with, 10 units. I mean, you lose buildings on this. I don't know, if the buildings go away, because we're not gonna build a multi-family building with 6 units in it. 12 feels pretty much like a townhome at that point. So these are small residential buildings. Even if the massing might not seem like that on this concept, I mean, they really are broken up. The one that's fronting State Road 50 is a 2-story in the middle of a 3-story mixed use and a 4-story hotel with 3 and 2-story fronting on the other side. So these are smaller buildings that we have, and that residential density is really important. And I think that's why the comp plan was amended to acknowledge that up to 25 units an acre would be acceptable fronting State Road 50. Again, that was a town initiated future land use text amendment to your comprehensive plan.
As a comparable, a typical garden apartment is about.
Don't have to be typical, do we?
Sorry,
We don't have to be typical, do we?
well, that's the average, and we're much lower than that.
We won't be with your design typologies and diversity requirements that you have in your code and those vision.
This also handles the buildings and the building frontage as far as on the street. And if we look at the design code, we'll see that we make those breaks on 50 for that very reason, that we have buildings siding up to and then encouraging pedestrian activity with buildings on the block. We also have block lengths that are limitations for the project that just exercises the block lengths as well.
Are you taking those dwelling units on the entire acreage of the property, or are you taking on usable acreage of the property?
It's on the, well, it's on the, yeah, it lessens out the open water.
So you take away
So the
About 117 acres.
17.
Yeah. So it's not a. Didn't hire me to do math, I can probably.
I'm sitting here trying to
It'd be 17.
solve.
So 17 times, it's 34 units. What cuts down?
So based on the total acreage, the gross density without taking out that water body, it's 8.2 dwelling units per acre. If you less out the water body, you get down to about that 17, you come in at 10.8 dwelling units per acre. So that's your net density.
Not on the 21, but on the 7th, you said 7.
On the 7, yeah, that is about 17.
You're losing 4 roughly. Or Tara, you said 8, you leave it as is 8, but that's.
That's the total acreage, that's the total,
8 can be done on.
that's on the total acre, right? But your code actually does it on the taking out the wet water body.
Right.
So the number,
Mixed-use activity center.
correct,
does.
right.
Yeah.
So for
17 is what the calculation is based on.
For mixed-use activity center, you
Correct.
have to less out the water bodies, not.
yeah, so, yeah, the density that they're at based on your comprehensive plan is 10.8 dwelling units per acre. That's the density they're at right now.
Based on, so, wait, 10 divided by 17?
Something, it's typically.
Determine what the net, right, what are we?
I'm trying to, yeah, so I'm trying to, yeah, so.
If they stay with where they are, they're getting 15 less units, so is that really the discussion that we're really? When it comes down to it.
Yeah.
If they come in.
We don't think they can come in and say, yes, you have the right to do this.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Unless you want to, your problem, like you could, but legally.
Yeah.
So you minimize it, you maximize it.
I'm pro development when it comes to this stuff, because I would rather shop in Oakland than go to all the neighboring cities that we go to, so.
If you're able to minimize it, are you able to create a little more personal on there, retail on there? And then the residents still are able to.
Yeah. If you're, I don't know the economics, but if you're 20 less residential units, is that the make or break for the economics of the project, right? Right, so that's,
I'm trying to get.
yeah,
Is it better to have less residential, just reduce the building? More commercial. You know, how does that work? That's what I'm trying to,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to hash out.
It's,
My guess is the residential is where the money's at.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's, you'll lease them up quick. I mean, they'll go, and look, I 100%, I guarantee you that these will, you'll build them and there'll be a waiting list.
I'd rather see it like this than an apartment complex.
Oh, I agree. Agree. Yeah, agree. I mean, it's,
My big thing is just making sure the parking's right.
but I'm saying is the residential density the correct number?
Right.
Or is it too heavy?
It'll take down the building size if you take out the residential units, so it's not gonna necessarily correlate to scale any more commercial. So we might not get to the 150,000, because the way it's designed out is to have those units above first floor retail. So the 150 is broken out into multifamily mixed use buildings that we are achieving our density on based on both the density and the intensity of use of mixed use. So I don't think that gets you more commercial on
So you're not going to increase the commercial space, but
the.
does it make a big difference going down to like 170 units?
What's wrong with a little more green space?
I don't think you're going to get green space. You're going to get shorter buildings.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
and the intent is to keep those buildings on those pedestrian streets. They are kind of the public realm walls of those streets.
Is the hotel in the developers agreement?
In terms of permitted use.
It has to be.
It is in the development agreement because it is one of the listed uses that they're requesting to do.
That they have to do.
No, it's only in the development agreement because that's what they requested to be there. Yes, so the development agreement does have the hotel in development. Again, there's more on the other that.
But your intent as a developer is not, you're going to look for somebody to build a hotel, not, you're not developing and
We developed hotels.
you may do, okay.
Are you gonna build it and are you gonna sell the land or are you gonna, or you're gonna think you're gonna you're gonna need a flag is what you're doing
We've developed and own operated hotels as well.
with a flag or do you have both?
Yeah.
What have you done before?
Got Hilton, there's a Marriott, a couple other different ones.
Any work?
Not a lot of time. Nebraska, Colorado.
What's your idea for this hotel?
We see it, and I've talked to Mike about it, we see it as
If we want to have an engaged restaurant, because that corner is very critical to the overall critical mass of the project. And so it is not just as a single use hotel. We want there to be a restaurant engaged into that hotel as well.
It's only 100 rooms, so that's a boutique style hotel.
Yeah, right.
We're not getting-
Yeah, 150.
It's going to be a select service hotel.
Yeah,
So
we pictured something nice.
yeah, it's going to be at HGI Courtyard by Marriott.
Spring Hill Suite or something. like
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Nobody's there during the day. They're all there.
That's correct.
They come in at
And it goes back to a
6.
turnpike exit.
That sure as I don't want it to look like 46 in Sanford, though, where you have hotels, gas stations, little strip malls, and then we just look and it doesn't look amazing at all.
Can I say something to that too? I don't know if you've looked through, if you look through Mike's designs. That hotel has to be a nice hotel. If you look at what he's created for the commercial and for the retail and what's gonna go in there. I mean, it's beautiful. It's extremely well done. So that hotel is not gonna be, a red roof in. Yes, that sits like, it sticks out like an eyesore.
It's like it looks terrible.
It'll deteriorate the rest of the development.
It looks terrible.
The whole thing, the whole thing has to flow nice. I mean, this is,
I guess.
I don't know if you can see this. Yeah.
We didn't
you
print the whole
guys-
300.
I don't know if anybody saw
I
that.
did. I looked through it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
They're all lovely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful set.
I'm a little, because I see a lot of hotel developments, right? So I don't see this as just being like a home through suites on the side of the road or something like this. I see it as part of a whole development. There's a lot of nice mixed use developments with hotels incorporated into them these days.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Sorry?
Have you seen?
The design standards of the town, like what's in the
Yeah.
development agreement.
The development
And the
agreement is what,
And the ARB, yeah.
So once
It's
you
a
build.
costlier design package that you all have. It-
I'm sorry, say it.
Extended stay.
Oh, Nick Vermont.
Yeah, we would happily agree to that development.
We can
That's,
talk about that in DA.
we would deteriorate our whole project, as I mentioned to you, if that wasn't blended properly with everything. So.
The amount, the cost for this type of development with the architectural features that we're talking about would actually, that type of operation. would-
I see how,
Yeah, I think the, the elevation to the side, I mean, they fit what we talked. Yeah, I mean, they're nice. I don't have an issue with the architectural side. Sean. You have something to do.
come back here, please.
You gotta say your name. Yeah, so.
I'm sorry, can you come up because I'm not able to hear you.
Yes.
Name, name and address.
Sean Fulton, 227 Lago Vista Drive. I work for one of the biggest or the biggest hotel operator on the planet. There is a snowball's chance in hell that we would occupy that hotel. There's a couple of areas. We would probably put something cheap because we would know that our business is turnpike traffic. No one's coming to stay in the hotel unless they're going to visit this gentleman. And if you've got a 100-room hotel, you need to have high occupancy. And there's no way we're going to put a boutique hotel in Florida. That's not going to happen. My other concern is, as a hotel person in the hotel industry, is that I would hazard a guess that potentially 50% of those residences would become Airbnbs because of simply the location. Jump on 429, you're in the back door of Disney.
Are you saying the hotel would become an Airbnb?
No, the residents. You're restricted.
That's what you can't do that.
Okay, so that's a great question.
Okay.
Okay, because no one's mentioned Airbnb or VRBO or any of that. So restricted in the city.
That's,
If it is, I'd like to know about it, but if no one can rent their place. then-
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Part
so
of the lease agreement is typical enough.
excellent. Yeah, but the hotel concerns me greatly. As a resident, I came here to get away from what we do. And I don't want to see people turning off the turnpike. I don't want to see the retail space turn into a discount shop.
We wouldn't want that either. That's part of the reason for the mixes of use. We want those residential components to.
Right, but in the middle, it has to be economically viable. And if you're going to build something like this, I can't see it being filled without funneling traffic off this. Because people that travel 50 are commuting. And they're not cruising. And the businesses that have developed it, opened up along 50 look pretty dead to us. They're not very busy. So, but again, what Shane was saying about the parking facing 50, it gives me that, it gives a vibe of, we're trying to attract people to come off the turnpike, park easily, get something to eat and be on their way. And I don't know how you're going to
Respectfully disagree because this is a mixed use. That's part of the whole presence of the place. It's creating a sense of place. For town residents, for the people that would live in there, those retail stores support the people that are living there. So it's intended not to be just a transient traffic, counting on just the traffic.
So for example, in any of those buildings, is there space for supermarket?
The scale of this is too small.
Yeah. So there's nowhere for it to shop other than Costco, would that be a true statement?
Well, it's actually, when we did the vision plan, the village E has the availability to have a larger big box areas that would not hurt the overall. this development, I'm sorry, I wouldn't say Walmart, but it's about a 25,000, 30,000 square foot. So it's smaller scale, but this property being close to the town center, we did specifically not want to develop a big box in this. We wanted block sizes with the smaller building sizes that we have in our first code. That is reflected in the big.
Okay, well, you know, I've voiced my concerns, from hotel operators. People are leasing it out or getting an operator, they be us. And I just cannot see a boutique operator. We have to charge the room rate, but you just, doesn't make sense. Whoever came up with that business plan probably. But, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Paul. By the way, I have a really big pen. The discussion tonight, if I'm trying to understand in the back, is are we gonna allow them to build under the current code, which is allowing them eight units an acre, or increase it to 10 units an acre? So we're talking about probably 20 or 30 units. Everything else is ancillary because it's already approved.
That's correct.
Got approved.
Yeah, correct.
All this other discussion is going back to way back when we approved this vision. So your job is to decide, you're gonna give them the extra 20 or 30 units so you can put something that's nice there or not.
Thank you.
That's correct. That's what it is.
Anything else? Nothing. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back. We need to do anything special.
Motion.
Okay. Is there any other questions from anybody? Okay. You have to recuse yourself. Okay, so Blaine is recused. Okay, guys. So it's not hard, just Blaine wants to make a motion. Huh? What was that?
Before going up to the 10 units per acre.
Well, it's your motion. I mean, it's keep it as it is, or for 8 units, or you go to the activity center and you get 10. What was that?
Where is the ask money?
mean, that's-
Isn't it usually spelled out? Yeah. This one?
You can,
What's the other one?
Sorry, we didn't go through that.
Asking.
all right, guys, usually there's it's on the back.
Yes.
Isn't it?
So there, you have two ordinances that are being requested. The first ordinance is for the small scale land use amendment.
Yeah, here it is.
From to the activity center. At one point, I do want to say though, you can still do the small scale amendment to change the mixed activity center, because I think you still need to have that overall arching land use, the overall mixed use, but you can limit the density to what you're talking about by still changing. So you can make, as part of that motion, mixed use activity center, but not to exceed, say, 8 units per acre. If that's what you all want to do. You could do that. So that's the first ask.
That's the only one we're looking at. Yeah, right
Yeah,
there.
that's the first, that's a small scale.
Yep.
That's the first.
So that's the first one. And then I would caveat it with when this goes to the commission, that they study the development agreement, and if they need to change something.
Mr. Chairman, that'll be under the second ordinance, because that's under the PD zone.
Right, so make sure they.
So the motion is to approve the small scale future land use amendment ordinance 2024-03.
Correct. Okay, so that's the motion.
Yeah.
Motion and second, anybody?
Yeah.
Second by Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm going to be a nay. Okay, so that passes. Now we're moving to ordinance 2024-04.
Okay, so that's ordinance 2024-04, and ordinance of the town of Oklahoma adopting a town official zoning map amendment to adopt a new plan development zoning with the development agreements and master plan for the project Fourth Street Village. Certain real property owned by Oakland West 50 LLC, generally located on the south side of West Colonial Drive, at Fourth Street as more particularly described herein with an approximate size of 21.25 acres. Making findings and providing for conflict severability and for an effective date.
So, Mr. Chairman, with this ordinance, this is now to assign the plan development zoning as well as that will bring the development agreement. So the discussions that you all just had about what are the right density, number of units or the types of uses, that's where this would fall under this ordinance. And so you can make the part of this motion, if you want to make adjustments to the development plan. That's presented to this evening.
Okay. Guys. Want to make any changes? Now's the time. You can mark up Mr. Morrison's plan.
I'm not quite sold on the hotel. I'd like to see the buildings move to the front still like we had originally discussed.
So Mike, how hard is it to kind of look at that again and see what we can do as far as doing something where you don't have to see a parking lot when you're driving down 50?
There's multiple ways if we take buildings from one street to another street, we're opening up that one of the streets. So it's kind of either or scenario. My preference for the walkability and atmosphere is that those residences and mixed use buildings have a little bit more of those walkable streets as part of their environment versus what we're existing context of 50 years. We're definitely bringing a good portion of the buildings up to 50. So it will look unlike the rest of 50. It will have presence on 50. We're just not doing with the entire block like we're doing on the walkable pedestrian streets. Again, those streets are open streets. So these are part of the town. Prefer to have those engaged with pedestrian streets rather than just, but again, that's a condition that you're to, have a discussion.
So what if you were to take some of these that where they sit back off the road and you put them in a north-south fashion where they're kind of aligned, where it breaks up the parking and the parking's not so large?
What I would say to them is that these blocks are of a scale that we're not typically seeing. The annuals, those are all much longer blocks, even very short blocks. And so the distance between those actual buildings is comparatively smaller than most typical conventional developments.
Understand that and how close they are, but what I'm saying is if you're trying to still create that walkability or walkable type of environment. And you take those buildings, you have the building on the corner, then you have a building could be in the middle, instead of it running in a east-west fashion, it runs in a north-south. You still create that block, but it becomes a smaller block.
I think what happens is you end up that part would end up being more road parking internalized in the block if you kind of basically take a building and rotate it. Not as efficient parking. So it's almost like if you're against I would look at that design code component of the urban corridor to show you how those buildings are following that design code. But taking a building and putting it to 50 would be the more practical use of that block. Interrupt the internal parking of each block.
If you push the building to the road, like we had said, instead of it running like that way, you push it back to the road, you still have that ability for that person to walk across and walk around. You can't see what I'm drawing, but
East-west oriented
Yeah, looking at this building down here and is there an option to run it in this fashion? Or do you bring this building up and then you're kind of, you're still walking it around? All I'm saying?
Yeah, so this right here is a 2-story building.
Yeah.
It's residential. So, and that building has a sidewalk all the way around it. Those units on the ground floor are actually accessed from the sidewalk. These are not internal. So we'd be putting residences right on Starlink if we.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you've got here, this would start to look.
I know, I'm trying to get rid of that. I just gotta get rid of it.
If I measured that distance and showed you what that was.
It's not very large.
It's really, everything about it's fairly. Huge scale.
Yeah.
Like. So,
No, I know.
It's not very good.
the scale of the entire project is very much more human scale than pretty much anything we've seen, other than what I was referencing as New England Avenue. Where you have pedestrian and vehicular street, where you have walls that are creating those environments. And if we were to reverse that, we would have gaps in those. But again, it's the idea is to create that critical mass on those pedestrian streets.
Anybody?
You just go back to the parking again. Same.
What are the parking counts we have, Brad? Do you know?
Well, we don't have actual parking counts for this because they didn't.
But there's a code that says if you're using this particular use, it's 3 per 1,000 or 5 per 1,000 or 6 per 1,000.
3 to 4. Yeah, quite a
1,000 or
variety. Right now, it's like.
3.3 per 1,000.
Per 1,000 for commercial, and then more like multi-family, it kind of like varies between whether it's like a 2 unit or a 1 unit. I think like a 1 unit's like 1 or 1.5
bedroom, typically 1.5.
Yeah.
2 bedroom, 2 studio, 1.
Yeah.
And then how many square feet how many total retail or commercial square foot are you talking?
So the 150,000 and they broke it out at 125 retail and 25 is office.
But that's like maximum.
Well, yeah, we got the plan for the max. Because if that's what you're requesting, that's what we got the plan for.
But
It's gonna be their limiting factor, right?
Right. So I want to make sure that, yeah, if you're going to say, well, we're going to ask for 150,000, but we're only going to build 100 of that, you come back and he sells it, somebody else comes in and says, I have the right to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, yeah. I'm just saying, if you have to plan the parking for the max of what you're doing. If it's 150,000, let's say you say, well, I'm not gonna do 150, I'm just gonna do 100,000. And then he sells it, and then the next guy comes along and the next guy says, well, I have the rights to go another 50,000. And maybe you don't have the adequate parking that you thought you would, you only have it for 100,000.
The town will definitely control the use space on the building.
So that would give you, if it's 150,000, that's 495 parking spots. For commercial. 500 parking spots.
Yeah, see, what I don't want to see happen is they figure out how many spots they have. Go for the residential aspect of it to max out the parking to get the 190 units, and then the commercial space gets smaller. Right, because they don't have enough parking for commercial now. Or we don't want it the other way, right? You want to lock in 150. Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
8 units, because it was fine for the last guy.
Yeah.
Right? So my fear is that you'll sit there and go, well, I can get more of the residential and less of the commercial because, you might say, well, I'm not gonna drop this. I'm gonna drop this resident or retail. You'll lease out and you'll you'll make better as a developer on the residential side. I mean, it will fill up fast. You'll do 191 in 190 units in no time, right? So I just don't want the ability for them to, and not saying that you are, I'm not calling you, I'm in the same business you're in. I love the town, it's fun doing it. But you have to. I understand. The ground floor is a commercial and that's wonderful. I love that. It's great. It's just 500 spots, just if you did the commercial part of it, if it's 3.3. And then you throw in the residential units, what are the units on, what's the ratio on that one? Per unit, or is it?
Vary based on bedroom.
Yeah, very. And so apartments with
One person.
units or more, 1.5 spaces per unit. For one bedroom, it's 1.5 spaces for each dwelling unit.
Right.
For 2 and 3 bedrooms, 2 spaces.
So you could take the average, right? And
And there
do
would be
that.
this 1, 2, and 3s.
Yeah, probably. So what's the average? What do you say the average was?
1.5.
Yeah.
I was 1.5. So there's another 286 on top of that.
You don't count how many you show on your plan right now?
I don't recall.
So a total on that, a total math on that is 782 spots to be crammed into that 17 acres.
That's what. It'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, how can you fit that in there?
How many spaces are on that plan? That's.
There's no parking deck inside that developer's agreement, right?
I didn't. Talks about blocks, right? It specifically said, okay, it's a 2.4 acres, and then talks about the park to be provided. Says on those 2.4 acres, you would have a hotel with 24 units of residential, and you would have office, retail, and it says what the parking count would be because of that. So town contemplated what that would look like if you broke out those uses spread out different blocks plan. So that's why we didn't come up with any different parking, because the map done for us.
On the notes on the drawing, it's, and again, my math is great, 170s.
On the drawing, but
Well, it's on basis, but not on what's actually ever provided there. So it's like, these are just kind of like maximum uses if we. Yeah. Okay. I don't think I've said my name yet. It's Bobby Johnson, 3709 Bobolink Lane. And we provided like a maximum uses. There's when you come to like actually to construct, there always needs to kind of be like some flexibility, so you don't have to come back to, let's say, the PD stage. So it's like if there's any kind of need to use, like, say, some additional commercial or to slide up the office, it's not like we're gonna 25,000 feet tap for 25, there's 25,000 square foot of office. I really don't visioning in the current climate of like, we haven't really building that out. So we just want kind of like flexibility to adjust those numbers, but it's not like we're going to go and build a 700 parking lot out there and not be able to fit on those, like physically a building, because it's like we're limited to like 2 to 3 stories, except for the hotel, I think would be a 4-story of actually being able to fit the buildings with this required parking. So I think it's like when it comes through, that's kind of going to be the entitlements there, but I think we're not going to reach all the way. So just having the flexibility.
yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing the 2-story, 3-story, it's the parking count and the ratio that you're gonna throw in there.
Yeah.
Pardon? They have to, so that means that you gotta lower your density then.
It's potentially right, because what would happen if this went through, when they would come back in with their preliminary site plan, that would come back to you all for review.
But then you're gonna go back and say, well, we can't do 10, we gotta do it.
Right,
That's what I'm trying to, yeah,
parking limitation.
keep trying to do a little calculation here, but my fingers keep hitting the wrong button.
One of the things about your parking code, though, it does have lots of breakouts on different commercial uses, so there is a general number. but there's a separate number for,
Restaurant.
like, beauty supplies, there's a separate number for that. There's all kinds of different ways that you can look at your parking standards within your code. So, but you could do what you're doing on this, Chairman. I mean, you could do an average in there, because there is a shopping center and that says, I think it was the 3 number that you were.
So the math I'm doing now is figuring out, you have 17 acres, you got 782 spots. How many acres? 782 spots.
On average.
You got 180 square foot for a parking spot. Look, I'm getting really granular on it. I'm getting really detailed on it, but.
It's a brand value, 270 square foot, 180 for the space, and then a little bit more.
Yeah.
Pipeline, so like.
Sure, right.
But yeah, so you're shopping just for a shopping center. What your code is 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor. That would be a shopping center.
Understand, yeah.
And so, but then like with personal services, like, it says like banks, lending institutions, it's 1 per 100 square feet of floor area. Plus 1 per 200 above the first floor, excluding inside storage areas. So that's why it's hard to do it at this level where we're at on the comp plan kind of very low scale. It's very specific that we come in to actually apply these standards.
Yeah, so you might need 5 acres set aside just for parking, and then you got roads and all that stuff in there, maybe 4. If you were to block everything and say, okay, this is, okay. The developer agreement state that parking, I know it says in our code.
So it'll follow the code. Yeah, we didn't put any kind of deviations or other standards other than what's here put in the development.
Okay, so there is a public hearing, so we got to open up to the public. Anybody in the audience want to say? No. Everybody said hello.
I'm Becky Corcoran and I live at 19 Open Point Circle. And as far as the parking, my husband is in a wheelchair and he uses a handicap van. And I don't know how many times that we drive around into these developments or anything and cannot find parking because the handicap, use a van, makes it a little bit more space. So when you're building these parking lots, be more effective. People that got hurt depending on how you build.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back here for you guys. So what's on the, in front of us is ordinance 2024-04, and it's the rezoning to a planned development of PD with the development agreement. So if I'm wrong, Brad, it's basically just stipulating what can be done in the development agreement.
It sets all the maximum densities and density development and.
Yep.
So if you want to reduce those, this is when you make that recommendation, reduce that as part of the development agreement, because it does have the allocation of the 190 and 150,000 square feet and the 100 hotel rooms, so that is in the development agreement. So if you would like to, if that's something you want to reduce, you would make that recommendation to reduce that here. Or if you want to prohibit some uses or something, you would make that recommendation here as well.
Right. Anybody want to say anything? Add, reduce?
We are gonna put a hotel. Should we reduce it if it's gonna be or venue to fill?
What was that, Mike? I'm sorry.
If the hotel, if we're not thinking that's actually gonna fill, should we reduce the rooms if we are gonna allow the hotel to go there?
Oh, you'll, I don't know. You may fill it with traffic coming cut through, but I don't know. I really don't know. And timeline too on some of this, is you're saying that the developer is saying that, hey, we're gonna build it all in one shot. You're gonna build a multifamily in one shot. That's showing your bread and butter. But the retails.
Everything but the hotel will be built all at one shot. Because everything but the hotel, because you need.
It's just gonna be a vacant pad sitting.
Yeah, it'd be a pad site. Which will help the parking.
Yeah. But you know, it's just, yeah, never, yeah, hotels and apartments don't really mix well, but yeah. Okay. Anything else? from Anybody? We'll take a motion. We can put in the agreement to move those buildings to the front. How do we move those buildings? Is that something Mike, is that something to look at or to redesign, or what do you think?
I would try to maximize the frontage on the, as far as the keeping the walls and pedestrian streets as viable as possible.
I understand what your concern is if you put the resident, so he's got that building, if you push those buildings up, they're residential units. And they're gonna sit right there on 50. That's what he's saying.
Right.
We're taking away the character.
Yeah. He wants to keep it more in the middle of that first street.
They were all retail.
Yeah, you could do that.
I would 100% get it. I get,
You can leave a hotel in or take it out, take your pick, or, you know, that's. You guys have to make a motion, I can't.
yeah. I'll do it again and make a motion to approve the rezoning ordinance 2024-04 compliant, I guess, yeah, the small scale future use of rezoning, right?
It's yeah, rezoning the PD with the development agreement, and now's your time to want to add stipulations in a development agreement.
Good. We're gonna see it again. So.
We're gonna see it again before it goes.
Site plans, yes.
Not the development agreement, though. You'll see the site plan, but not which will be more refined, but not the development agreement. Okay. Okay, so there's a motion made. I want a second. You repeat it again? So motion made, anybody second? Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's gotta be done. Gotta follow the development agreement. Okay, I eyed that one, because it's, you know, the safest bet is the PD it and follow the development agreement, make sure everything's in the development agreement. So again, hope the commission really reads that development agreement real close. All right, that's that one.
Thank you. I know this is a big project and I just want to appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You might need a break.
Yeah.
Guys, break. Can we break for like 5 minutes at least, or you allowed to break for 5 minutes? Yeah, okay. Yeah, reset for like 5 minutes. Thank you.
Village.
All right. Back in session. So the next item on the list is ordinance 2024-05, a public hearing at 1551 West Colonial Drive. This is a small scale future land use amendment to mixed use activity center.
Ordinance 2024-05, an ordinance of the town of Oakland, Florida, adopting a small scale town future land use map amendment of its comprehensive plan from commercial to mixed use activity center for the project Oakland Village at the Grove for certain real property owned by New Horizons Investment LLC located at the following address: 1551 West Colonial Drive. It's more particularly described herein within a size of 5.2 acres, making findings and providing complex severability for an effective date.
Is it? Or is it agricultural?
That's why
A1.
Zoning, but it's commercial future land use on the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
A1 zone, agricultural zoning, but
Commercial.
future land use map says it's.
That's why I had this.
When I read it, I was like, wait a minute, it was, yeah, okay, you thought the same thing I did. All right. Hey, Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brad Quinn, contractor town planner. So this is another village. The property, as said, is 1551 West Colonial Drive. And the applicant is Gemini Land Development. We're here, and New Horizons Investments, Mr. Frank Lascalia is also here, the owner of the property. It's 5.2 acres. It's currently vacant. It is in your urban corridor district. And again, as we just said, this is similar in terms of what's happening in terms of the requests. The first is the future land use, small scale future land use map amendment to assign the mixed use activity center, which is the hearing you have right now. And then there'll be the follow-up. Same thing as what you just did, was the rezone to plan development with the development agreement is also. So this presentation does cover both of these ordinances. Next, please. So that's the subject property. It's on the north side of State Road 50, West Colonial, there at your eastern boundary. It's about 5 acres. How I always remember where it is, it's across from the Schmidt building, that white building that's just outside. It's right across from there. You can see on the aerial there, there's the pond with the roadway DOT, and just to the west of there is where Tractor Supply is. So that is the location on the north side. So to the north of that property, is the Grove subdivision, as y'all are aware. And also, you know, Mr. Scally is also the developer of that. So these projects are connected with each other. So what this project is, this is another mixed-use center, mixed-use development, but at a much smaller scale. This is proposed to be a mixed-use development with a maximum of 72 multifamily dwelling units, maximum of 48,000 square feet of commercial retail. Comes out to a density of 3.85 dwelling units per acre and a floor area of 0.22, which again, under that mixed use activity center, which is a request to go for the land use, it's within those maximum. Again, the maximum land use density in this district is 25 dwelling units per acre, maximum is 2.0. So they're within those maximums. Next, please. So this is the site, the conceptual site plan that was submitted, and much smaller. On this property, what is being proposed is they have 2 buildings that front to the front of the property that are in kind of that L shape with the entry to the middle with the parking behind the buildings. These buildings are proposed at three stories. And with the idea of the first story being the retail and then the 2 stories above it being where the dwelling units would be located. And that's a picture, a conceptual picture of the buildings. We're not asking you to approve these today, but this is an idea. And this would come back to you all when they would come, if this gets approved through the preliminary subdivision plan process, as well as through the appearance review process. But that is the concept of what the buildings would be, the 3 stories. And that does meet your maximum that you're allowed here in the town under this urban corridor district is 4 stories and 60 feet. This is 3 stories, and to the top of the parapet, it's about 47 feet. So it's within those maximum heights, but you'll see more details of that if this does get approved, and I'll come back to you for that review. Next, please. In terms of the transportation with this one, it only has access on State Road 50. So any kind of access connection that they'll have, that's be something that will have to get permitted through FDOT and that driveway connection. And I didn't take out the 4th. That's on the other one. I'm sorry about that. But what's interesting, I think, about this one, and what I think is a nice part of this one, this cross access part of this project is to make a connection to the Grove subdivision to the north. So this project proposes to have, and it's also in the Grove subdivision plan as well, to have pedestrian golf cart access between there and this property. So people can make that come across without going on the roads to access the proposed commercial areas in this area. So that helps with that transportation. And it really truly gives it that kind of mixed use kind of feeling and that town center feeling for it. So I think that's a positive part of this project, especially when we talk about the transportation. They did present the traffic study that was done by planning, and she did come out with her finding that it did not have any significant impacts on State Road 50. Just as a note on there, she was a little bit low in her numbers because I know it did change from when she submitted it to what they submitted. We reevaluated it, and the findings are all the same. It still didn't change anything to make any significant impacts on State Road 50 with this project in terms of that. Next week. Again, with environmental impacts, they did have a phase 1 environmental study provided or done, which is part of your packet. There is a wetland area in that northwest corner that's actually was already permitted with some impacts with the Grove subdivision. So that's something that's already been addressed. There won't be anything additional than what's already been permitted. And really, there's no other really significant environmental impacts anticipated, but of course, they would still have to go through all the proper permitting processes for those issues as they come through. They would be connecting town utilities available, as well as getting the proper stormwater permitting to the town and St. John's River Water Management District with that. So we do find this proposed land use amendment, small scale to go to mixed use activity center. We do find it compliant with your comprehensive plan. This, I will say, because we had the big discussion on the last one, this is not one of the properties in the vision plan, because that vision plan was only on the south side of State Road 50. But I will say it does do the intent of your comprehensive plan in this mixed use activity center to have these mixed use centers of the residential with the retail and as part of the project. So I do believe it is compliant with what your comprehensive is promoting here on the State Road 50 corridor. Because again, this district, this land use district, mixed use activity center is only appropriate under your comprehensive plan on State Road 50 or close to it. And that's why this is we believe as your staff, that is the proper land use for this property. So I do recommend approval of the small scale amendment. And again, the applicant and his team is here, as well. If you'd like a presentation from them or any questions from them.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Brad. All right, guys, what do you think?
You get your buildings on the street.
So I have a question. Is the growth going to be gated?
No.
No. Okay, so those folks that live north of Oakland Avenue, would they be able, that means they would have to cut through the groves to get to this village?
No,
Right?
there's the new golf cart path that they gave them approval to make across.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry for,
No, to make across to where?
we were talking about coming across the street from Winter's Landing.
Well, there's
for
no drive
Oakland
to
Avenue.
Catherine
Yeah,
Ross.
so the police department came out with a new map and they approved certain areas for people to be able to.
Site plans?
You're gonna be able to then come over to where the police department is, come towards this property. Won't have to go through.
So there'll be access from Catherine Ross into there. Okay. All right, I
The
didn't
residents
notice
of
that.
this new community can go
Yeah.
through their community.
Right. Okay, all right, got it.
Need to pop that site. Okay, well, I'm just trying to pull the site plan up. So I saw on the site plan here, you got the pedestrian crossing. But you talked about golf cart, where is that, where would that be? So if a resident had a golf cart here, how would they cut through? Yes, and there's no cut through as far as like from the Grove cutting through to get out the 50s through there, right? It's totally separate,
Or you mean?
Well, both, let's start with a vehicle. So a vehicle, there's no intent for a vehicle to say, well, I'm in the neighborhood, I'm gonna cut through and get out the 50.
Beyond like a bicycle or golf cart through that.
It's in that top right corner there. That's that. Looks like a little driveway.
Yeah. Right corner?
It's like maybe a quarter in from the top right. There's a little driveway.
There. Yeah, that's pedestrian.
Driveway, that's the pedestrian access.
Pedestrian, and then I see there's another pedestrian. There was another pedestrian.
There's two. There's 10-footer
Yeah.
to point in, then there's one, the left side in a deep layout.
Okay. So the one to the right would be the golf cart
Yes.
access. Okay, all right,
Roadway connector.
great.
Okay. To the far right, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
future.
yeah, this one up here.
I mean, basically,
Oh,
that
that's the
entrance,
adjacent right property.
it's for the grove. I mean, people that live there are able to walk through the gates and go have an ice cream, have a sandwich, or go eat, you know.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if I'm able to drive, Art Blaine drives his golf cart, we can cut through there and,
Well, that's gonna be,
oh,
but it's just for, I mean, eventually it will. It's late and you can't cut through a subdivision, mingle through the driveways and just, get a excited with the golf cart. It's not bad.
sure. It's not gated. Is it gated?
No.
It's not. So totally, everything's open? Okay.
I mean, Catherine Ross eventually is gonna be paved. That's the actual.
So you can turn into the
Yeah.
village off of Catherine Ross. Without-
50, right? Isn't there?
Well, that's what I just asked.
Like you.
Yeah, you can only access through 50. A car.
So no, just crossing the Catherine Ross did. This property looks like, this is how it fit here.
Right.
And to get into these buildings, the entrance is.
Right.
Oh, okay, okay, that's okay. I see now, but that's not what I asked. I asked if you could go down Catherine Ross and turn, no, that's okay, and turn directly into the village. You cannot.
No, we can't. There's right now existing like DOT ponds.
Yeah.
So it's really built for the convenience of the Groves rather than the rest of us that live near there.
You can walk there. I mean, once you get on,
No,
if you drive on Catherine, you have to go left, go east, and then you do a U.
Okay. Okay,
It is, the Winter Gardens on the right side, right? That's city town limits.
Correct.
Okay, so that borders your Grove project, kind of right there along the edge, right there. Okay. And then on your, I mean, I know you said we're not looking at renderings, right?
But
But I mean, I guess you got one that has brick on it, which is kind of nice.
It's all brick, actually.
So it's not stucco like the,
It's all brick in the front and back, because the front page is on 50. It mimics, what's inside the village, which is, it's all same, same look.
Sure, okay. Okay. Cool. Anything else, you guys?
I just wanted to clarify one thing. I think Brad said 13.85 units to the acre. I think it might be 13.95. So we're under 14.
yeah, and where that difference is, I rounded the acreage to 5.2 and he calculated 5.16. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So they're the same number.
And
Even engineering.
And as far as the commercial goes, it's all first floor level throughout the whole, both buildings.
Yes.
And access, I guess, all the way through the units, back, front.
Well, there's like, you can kind of see like on the side plan where it's like, you have like hallways, like access hallways through the building. So you can get internal to the building and go to, say like, to the sub units inside. But you could go either access from to the front to 50 or off of the back rear parking as required for the corridor.
Yeah. I mean, I think most, I don't know, most businesses you'll probably access it from the back.
Correct. Yeah, that's probably
With your card, so.
90%.
Yeah.
Come from.
But your design guidelines for these type of buildings require that break every so often. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's good. Okay. Right. Anybody got anything on here before I open it up? No? Okay, guys. All right, so we'll do it's a public hearing, so we'll open up to the audience. Anybody want to say anything? Everybody have a chance to look at this? Yeah. Yes. Kevin, how are you?
Yes.
Kevin Cox from 301 Wall Street. There's not going to be a proposed light on Highway 50. That's my question.
Oh, is there going to be a proposed?
No, there will not be a proposed light at our entrance per DOT requirements.
Is there a left in?
It's a right in, right out.
So if you're going east on 50, you can't make a left turn in.
Yeah, you'd have to make a
UE and come back.
Turn at 5:45 and come back.
Michigan left.
Yep.
Correct.
Or the.
There is
It's got to be one there, right? Upper road. Yeah. Okay.
I think there's future contemplation of putting a access road by other people on the eastern property line, but it's like, we don't control that. We did work with Fred, asked us to put like a future connection when it does become available. So it's like we're gonna have the bill to connect if there ever is a pool
Okay.
right there.
I guess my concern is that's a beautiful piece of property with beautiful trees on it, and are we leaving anything, or are we just wiping it all out completely?
Yeah, so we will meet the city's tree requirements. You can kind of see where it's like in some of the parking areas where we are working around a lot of the bigger
Just trying to save some of those oaks.
yeah, of course, there's some like nice ones that we're able to kind of like carve around. So it's like we'll get more into the granular detail, but the site's perfect because it's nice of a flat site. So we'll go out there, we'll probably get with we'll actually look at the trees, making sure that we're saving things that need to be saved and not something that's already fallen.
like the Groves was. Like is going to be in the groves, all those trees that are being saved?
Not the orange trees, is that what you're
No,
saying?
no, the big oak trees that are in the property.
Yeah, so I know,
Well, we'll be code for, it's like we can't, since we are a commercial, there's only so many that we can say, but we are making an effort of meeting city's code for saving the permitted amount of historic and specimen trees. Like you can see in some of the site plan where we're working around, like, you can see where we're kind of like cut out spots. Like we already have some, big trees.
That's true.
to, like, work around.
if you dig into the packet, there's a tree plan where it comes out. And Mike, I knew you were gonna say that, so I printed one of these out for you.
Yes.
Where I overlaid the site with the tree and looking at it, there's a lot of they are saving a lot of historical specimen trees, like 48 inches and 36, especially along the road. And I think there's a 40 something right in the middle of the drive when you come in, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's a 48 right there.
Yeah, but the rest of them are like 12s and, you know, they're not.
Yeah.
Huge.
Survey everything above 6 inches.
Yeah.
I just don't think historic is 30.
36, I think it's 36. So there, you know, there's a few of those historic that will get saved, especially along the road.
Yeah, let's get a 60 in there and everything. And yeah, that's what I like saved.
Right, like, you know, it's just like Brad's already telling us that he has concern, like, we can't just do a square pond.
Right. Yeah, you need a kind of rounded edges. So there's a 48 inch, I think, on the edge of that pond that you could save on the front corner.
It's like here in summer, that will be. More boats. We definitely have the eye for the oaks out there.
So yeah, I think if you could save as much, yeah, like we did with the Grove, we walked it, we picked and looked at it. And yeah, did a good job out there so far. Kevin, we answer your question on the light or the circle or the U-turn? Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or yes? Chris? Say your name again.
Kristen Keller, 2511 Stone Creek Court. So I would express a couple of concerns. I do like this design better than the last with the buildings on the front. I think it's a better visual. I actually think this location is a better location for this type of property. So I would say I'm in favor of that. A couple of things that do concern me, the U-turn access. I live in Longleaf and that U-turn right there is very challenging for, unfortunately, we get a lot of traffic going to other places on through our neighborhood. But even just some residents alone making that U-turn, and again, a lot of people live and work off, you know, use the turnpike and be coming back. I would ask that there be some kind of consideration for something different there, just because I think that U-turn access can be very challenging. Also, obviously I can't see, it's very small on the drawings, how it attaches to the Grove. Again, in Longleaf, we were required to include paths that tied to the trail. And as somebody else kind of alluded to already, I think it's interesting that you're gonna have that commercial space that would obviously be beneficial to all Oaklanders, with no access other than that of 50 coming into that complex there. So I would like to see if there is access through the Grove neighborhood. Why wouldn't there be access for all residents? Because again, in Longleaf, we had to provide access and we have access to all residents in Oakland coming through our neighborhood. So I don't know why there would be an exception for the Grove. So that would be something I would ask the committee to consider and look at.
Thanks. Thank you. I mean, would there be room over in the very far northwest corner?
Yeah, I don't know.
I would like to see where.
What do you have on the back side of that as far as
You.
the houses?
Good connection to, it's like.
No, I think it's more golf cart or pedestrian connection, but you know,
Plans and everything we're trying to do connectivity. This isn't really, you know, friendly for everybody else if we do want to get there on the golf cart or anything. So if we could maybe do, I wish we had the other set of plans too. There was just like a small golf cart access to the very west side of that we could come out by the fire station or something and then cross over. I think the shops in here and all that would thrive, you know, much better as well.
meaning that just a golf cart.
I mean, it could be a car as well.
Then you kind of start bringing a lot more of the.
Yeah. Car, but just uses. I think it's gonna use as a cut through. I think if you limit it to pedestrian bikes and.
Bringing like,
Cars.
It's just the point of opening it to all residents of Oakland. I mean,
I guess if we had like a,
there's people that walk or a golf cart.
like something that maybe ran along that, if you drive your car and pull a U-turn or something, yeah. I don't know if that's a possibility to,
How much wider does that connection have to be if it was road or driveway or from the road or is it just a golf cart path?
well, that's like right now coming through where I think there's, where the lift station, the city's lift station is coming through. So it's like, I don't think there's an ability to put like, let's say, a full road right away through there. That would then start be putting more of commercial traffic into the Grove property. And I think that just kind of like changes the dynamics of that neighborhood. That was
so like if we look at like Golf Cart Park over in Winter Garden, you know how like you can go out on by the lake and all that, got that little bridge and they got like the pole there where it's only wide enough where you can walk through or take your golf cart through. If we had like a little access point like that, just off to the side or where you guys already having that walk through. Instead of having it be a gate, just have a little bit wider and have it golf cart accessible.
We can definitely, like, see if we can fit like something wider and we can work with, Jason PD owner and see if that's something that we can accommodate.
It's just like behind,
Something like that.
It's right there, they got. It's starting to go down,
Right.
They can put access in the, on that north, but then the property adjacent, we can also. No connectivity, but then never know.
Never have it.
Stands for. Something here from. Okay.
So all the way through there.
So what was your thoughts, Franco? What was your vision there?
It's, impact the growth, because, doing, custom homes in there. All the homes are gonna be between 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. And having traffic, with the golf carts means something that I did not intend, just specifically, for the growth. I mean, it's not, I'm not saying, that nobody could use it or it cannot be used. It's just what is. And what's the limitation? I mean, am I gonna get complaints, from owners saying, hey, I just see 20 golf cars, go through here. And that's gonna happen. So.
We have connectivity in Longleaf that we were required to have as part of the town. We have the actual bike trail was required to run through our neighborhood. And I don't think that the cost of those homes should be should be restricted of what they can have versus what we had to have in our neighborhood, based on price of house.
I guess I kind of like the connectivity option there to be able to. I may never ever drive, I may never ever go there. Who knows? But I don't know what you have budding behind that to create.
That's the.
Is there a house behind it?
There's a house right next to it, we have a lift station in the corner, but we have a little bit of space that we created.
So it's off
The right way, 10 feet wide, it's up lift station, but there's a lot there, right next to it, there's a lot to the left, there's a lot to the right. So anybody.
Small gap.
Right. I mean, there's, 10 foot of width. Just enough to fit a golf cart.
Right, I wouldn't like the car driving through there like a regular, it would just be, so if you did have something there like I don't know, ice cream shop or something, I'm just throwing it out there, you could drive up there. Dry clean, close up.
Because there are paths through other neighborhoods throughout, there's even, I think there's a path from the one neighborhood that, I'm sorry, I don't know which one it is that now backs up to the new Oakland Park section. There's a path for the kids to go to school that runs through that neighborhood.
it's golf cart friendly. But it's a walk.
But
Yeah.
like the path in our neighborhood isn't golf cart either. But there is connectivity, and that's kind of one of the things about the town is that.
Having
you
that
can get,
connectivity.
You can ride your bike from place to place, and that you know, why the trail runs through the middle and things like that, and that's kind of the charm of our town, and
We're one Oakland.
But why can't it be when Catherine Ross gets developed? Why can't they go on sidewalk? You know, have that path along the sidewalk, go to, you know, you going east. And be able to turn in, you know, inside the village. Why does it have to go through the grove? I mean, I'm just trying to minimize,
Yeah,
you know, the issues that I'm gonna have. You know, with the current, because they're spending quite a bit of money, so I'm trying to protect, you know, their interest as well.
Good question. The grow, but people aren't gonna want to go to Winter Garden. I mean, that's like a big selling point here, is to be able to go on your golf cart downtown Winter Garden. You know, that's once Oakland Park open and we're all connected to that. And so they're not gonna, these people in these probably aren't gonna be able
So I'm
to.
not sure what they're gonna do. I mean, I can't.
So you next to that road that goes next to the police department, is that the one you're calling out there?
Yes, well, that goes on West Colonial. That goes on West Colonial.
Yes, but if you come back
You go the other way,
north,
north.
there's gonna be a four-way stop there now and they can cross over. And that's what we're saying is we can cross over that way and go
Right.
to their neighborhood and go to your retail. And it's beneficial for the retail that will be there, for the,
Exactly.
you know, the commercial spaces that'll be in there, will have that access too. So the win-win and have access.
it's just a consideration. Consideration.
So the idea going down St. Catherine and turning left, going east, that's not an option?
I don't know if you can take a golf cart out onto the sidewalk there, FDOT.
Yeah.
If that's what you're talking about.
On West Colonial, the sidewalks being large, what's?
So I think it's FDOT right away. So then you're asking the FDOT, hey, how do I get my golf cart?
Is there sidewalks in that? I mean.
Well, it's like,
No.
would it be permitted by DOT to have?
There's a sidewalk on the police station side, but not on the other side.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, why couldn't you just go down and come around and come back? But I think that FDOT, the FDOT right of way is totally different. Am I right, Mike? I mean, it's.
And we learned town code supersedes that.
Supersedes the FDOT right away.
Absolutely. Have that discussion about police.
Not a golf cart down there.
Well, for regular.
I mean, I got pulled over for going to the coffee shop on mine, so they're gonna have a cow if I'm going down 50.
So, where I think we're gonna get off topic here. First section. Go to the other one. Okay.
What Brad said, or it's like, we're here for the comp plan.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
we'll see this. and-
Yeah, we haven't seen the site. This is just a preliminary site plan. We haven't seen it yet. Yeah. Okay. What do you have? So is there anybody else has anything else to say out there in the public hearing? We'll close the public hearing if not. No? Okay, so we'll close the public hearing. And we'll bring it back here to anybody here have anything else further to say? Okay. So we'll entertain a motion for ordinance 2024-05, which is a small scale future land use amendment. The mixed use. Okay. Blaine is recused. So it's going to a mixed use activity center.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion that's on the table right now. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that small-scale future land use Village at the Grove ordinance 24-5. Be approved.
Approved. Okay, second? Second. All in favor? Aye, okay. That's that one, that last one. Is ordinance 2024-06 public hearing. Oh,
Okay. You want to read it?
no, I do not.
Of the town of Oakland, Florida, adopting a town official zoning map amendment from Maker A1 to plan development PD with the development agreement and master plan project. Village of be owned by New Horizons Investment LLC located on the following ad. West Colonial Drive is more particularly described herein with an approximate size of 5.2 acres, the findings and providing for conflict, stability, and for an effective date.
They're the same.
Same thing.
And this is the PD and the development agreement. So the development agreement, just like the other one. It has those, the 72 dwelling units, has the 48,000 square feet as part of that development agreement. And like you said, well, earlier, Chairman, is this development agreement, what it does, one, it protects the town, because you know what you're getting, you know what's gonna get built. It also helps the property owner developer, because they also have, what they know they have maximum potentials. They don't have any deviations or any unusual standards approved under that development. They're straightforward. Again, if you want any kind of changes or even some of these ideas on the site plan, you can make that part of your motion. Look into that as if you'd like to.
Does anybody have anything they want to do or change or anything?
We're gonna see it again. We'll protect the trees at that point, so.
It'll come back against the other ones, back to you through the subdivision and the parent process.
Okay. Micah's not gonna like me, but I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna add to the developer agreement that the developer makes every reasonable effort to look at the access for pedestrian versus golf cart for public access. Okay. Every commercially reasonable effort, I guess. Okay. Am I allowed to throw that in there, or is it gotta be?
That's what needs to be included in the motion in order to be part of the actual.
Okay, okay.
If the person who's going to make a motion would like to incorporate Shane's comment, that would be all right, Shane's revision.
Is there anything else anybody wants to? That's all. I will open up to the public hearing. Anybody out there want to say anything? No? Okay, close the public hearing. Table.
This is rezoning, right? That's what, yes, this one is rezoning.
And then it's, rezoning to a PD and then
Yeah.
in this development agreement, which that's all good except that one I have that on there. I mean, yeah, that's good. I mean, great little project. So if anybody wants to make a motion,
So I'll make a motion to approve rezoning A1 to PD plan development with development agreement and add in connectivity for golf carts.
is that good? Commercially reasonable efforts to try to do connectivity? Okay,
Yes.
okay, so that motion's made second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
But do this for, because they have the plat process for the Grove, and just so you know, the plat does have the internal roads dedicated to the public.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Right.
But.
Right. Not private roads. Got it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, guys. That's it. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys for.
Marathon.